What's up? It's your boy Tris, bringing you bliss as we face all sorts of Disney twists. So you can hear my neighbor in the back just going off with the music, and it's with this that I'm bringing you back to the channel, Holybalognajabronies. What's good, my jabronies? I know it's been a while. I've been working on a lot of long videos and editing, but it's made me realize, I still got to do the short videos here and there while I can, while I work on the longer content and I figure out how to edit that shit down. Because, it's been what, 1-2 months, and I haven't seen you guys in all this time. I'm just doing stuff in the background, and you're probably like, you pack up and go? No, I'm still here. Happy holidays to all of you, by the way. I know, as Prim Hood Cinema said.
Happy Thanksgiving. Are y'all celebrating Thanksgiving? This is a stupid-ass holiday, started by some racists, but whatever. This is a stupid-ass country, started by some racists. I just want some damn mac and cheese. I'm going for it. Yo.
But in the meantime, while we're dealing with that, I wanted to go over some of the things that happened at Disney, because despite a lot of the fuckery that came along with it, I know a lot of people's Disney dreams finally came true with the end of Bob Chapek and the return of Bob Iger. I mean, again, this is still a monopoly, still evil, but I know a lot of people are a lot happier now that one Bob is out and the old Bob is in.
When Bob Chapek was fired this Sunday evening, just before Thanksgiving, in the most sudden public firing of a movie executive that Hollywood has ever seen, the joy that erupted across the land pretty much qualifies Chapek as an actual Disney villain.
I, admittedly, do not have a positive outlook on the job that current Disney CEO Bob Chapek has done with the company.
Disney stock price, hard to have a positive outlook.
It's all about the stock, baby. It's all about the stock.
Disney stock price dropped despite the fact that they've added a bunch of subscribers to Disney Plus. Their losses total in the neighborhood of $4 with a capital B billion in losses and stuff like that. We are accustomed to the story of Disney being success after success after success.
The money was rolling in because they thought he was doing such a great job.
But what happens when you hit some adversity? Well, apparently, if you're Disney and you're Bob Chapek, your first reaction to the first signs of adversity is lay people off, don't travel anymore, don't go to essential meetings or stuff like that, do everything over Zoom.
But after having recently given Chapek a contract renewal and a big fat bonus, when the stock started to drop, as it has suddenly and quickly, sinking to new recent lows, dropping under $100 per share, well then Bob Chapek was shown the door.
First of all, it's funny, Bob Chapek talking about implementing a hiring freeze, limiting company travel, and all that, and now he's the one who's being limited.
Now keep this up for a minute. I want to look at some of this, to highlight some of these things. Number 1, hiring freezes. Number 2, layoffs. Number 3, restricting travel. Number 4, can't even meet together, do it over Zoom. Number 5, we're going to cut back on our content spending. Number 6, we're going to cut back on our marketing spending. All right. This is your classic wrong overreaction.
And, they do bring up the point that, Bob Iger, he's had his hands in things for a while. He knows what he's doing on multiple fronts of the company. While Bob Chapek was brought in at a time of what? They had successfully made so much money off of things like Endgame and everything else. And he was kind of coming in on the heels of a lot of good to now start cutting prices. And with the pandemic, what was his, before the pandemic, and all that, what was his experience? His experience was working at the Disney parks and making the park attendants' lives miserable with all the cuts. And he brought a lot of that same energy to the company overall when he became CEO.
Chapek is widely believed to be responsible for this aggressive pricing strategy, which has just gotten worse and is about to get worse. They're gonna differentiate price points for the parks to try and, all of this has been said to be done in the name of improving the guest experience. But every single guest says it's a worse experience. So it's like all the guests are like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills or Chapek pills. Stop trying to gaslight us.
And it's like, you really get what you pay for. On one hand, let's acknowledge for our fellow socialists, these companies want to expand forever and ever. They want to have revenue that grows forever and ever. And at some level, that's just impossible. At some point, capitalism stops growing exponentially. At some point, you're going to get lower and lower returns of value. Not to mention that, too, that like even billionaires of the past were thinking we would have a much greater future because with the advancement of technology, you know, human race could just lay back on its laurels pretty much and let, you know, machines produce the profit for us and for society, and that would take care of us. Of course, no. We don't keep it human at all. For the here and now, like, look what's going on with the crypto space, with the NFT space, with FTX collapsing and all the insolvency and fraud that was going on behind the scenes there.
I warned you guys, been free, describing DeFi and crypto as basically a Ponzi scheme positively, and they wondered, how did any of us trust this guy?
I think of myself as like a fairly cynical person, and
Yep.
that was so much more cynical
Yeah, listen,
than how I would have described farming. Like, you're just like, well, I'm in the Ponzi business, and it's pretty good.
Just like other people
Right.
put money in the box, and so I'm going to too, and then it's more valuable, so I'm going to put more money in.
So yeah, things are looking really grim.
Like, with the billions that have been lost this year alone, 2022 alone, in crypto, we really see a lot of even the millionaires and billionaires that are popping up getting into the Ponzi dynamics of everything, like getting into the fraudery just to increase beyond what are the normal levels to even grow an economy anymore or grow their own personal pockets anymore in this economy. Like, at some point, we're going to have to realize that the limits of eternal growth is there's limits to that shit. That shit is not set to infinity.
The board of directors, they didn't care. They didn't care about, how everybody was unhappy, from Hollywood talent to fans. What is good is that Bob Iger understands and respects the Disney magic. Bob Chapek did not.
And while I'm glad he's gone, because fuck somebody who thinks the solution to making up the difference in unlimited but actually limited company growth is just to lay off people. Again, we love Bob Iger, but...
And I think people are like, did such a bad job choosing the last one. Why don't you choose the next one, too? Oh, wait a minute. Didn't he sow a lot of the seeds that we're coming to reap right now? Maybe this is not great.
Also, it was under Iger that Disney cast members were getting paid so little, many were sleeping in their cars in the Disneyland parking lot. And Disney Plus is Iger's baby. He feels his legacy. He said, why can't we be our own Netflix? And that pushed all the other studios to get into the streaming game as well to compete. And this has had huge repercussions on Hollywood. Most of them not particularly good. He has just created a behemoth, and that's why all these other companies are having to combine to try and get on the same level, and they're just creating these Frankenstein monsters. And Disney Plus is the current yoke around the company's neck, where they're spending way too much money on content for Disney Plus. It's crazy!
If you're Disney and you look, say, our profits have fallen. What's the first thing they did? They jacked the price of Disney Plus to try to get you and me to pay for their losses. Instead of their ad-supported tier being cheaper, they actually made it the exact same price as the current price of Disney without ads.
For which he and Bob Chapek, both Bobs, got astronomical bonuses for the initial success of Disney Plus. They made so much money off of that service. They saw profit. So Disney Plus is still operating at a loss, despite the best subscriber growth in the industry. If Disney Plus can't turn a profit, what hope is there for anybody else?
So, I think one of my favorite comments on this that a lot of us know instinctively, but like we don't mention often enough, is by GP on the first video we watched for John Campus saying, notice that whenever a company announces cost-cutting measures, CEO salaries and top brass bonuses are never mentioned. Capitalism, baby. And like, yeah, that's the fucking truth of it. Like, to me, I find it very interesting that we thought Bob Chapek was going to stay on because they extended his contract by like 3 years. So, are we to take it that means they probably... Because there's no way Bob Iger was being talked to this weekend and it's like, hey, Bob, you want to come back and run the company? He's like, I'm not doing too much right now. Yeah, come back running your company. And it's all just happened as a split second over the weekend. There's no way that that's real. Like, I feel like they've been talking to Iger for a minute. They've been probably in Chapek's ear for a minute, like telling him, yo, like you gotta fix shit around here. Like shit is going left. He's like, well, I'm gonna right the ship. And I was like, you ain't really writing the ship. And they probably been bugging him to get shit right. But in the meantime, someone was certainly talking to Bob Iger is about taking back the mantle at the least in the interim while they plan to get rid of motherfucking Chapek. This is gonna be a move that people are gonna like for Disney. It's not gonna scare the stock market and the fans as much if they just get rid of Bob Chapek and just put some new person in who no one's quite sure what they're gonna do with the company. So I'm sure some of these conversations have been going on for at least a little bit, but it almost makes me wonder if they extend his contract for another 3 years and then are now given the axe for that buying him out of his contract to basically act as his severance to don't say too much bullshit about everything back here. Go quietly. We're gonna put in a old hand that everyone loves. Is gonna shore up support for the company, and moving forward, whoever we put in line, we want to give that feel of like, ooh, the fans are guessing now in a way that they're still hopeful because it's going to be again out the hands of Bob Iger. Not to forget that Bob Iger was the one who passed the shit to Bob Chapek in the first fucking place.
Is Iger Disney's Prince Charming a magic bullet? No, I don't think so.
As Steven says, why does everyone forget Bob Iger was in charge of Mulan filming outside of an active concentration camp? Yeah, Bob Iger, hashtag blessed.
Like I said, I'm not a big Bob Iger fan and everything like that. I at least appreciate the working relationship he had with studio heads like Kevin Feige and everything like that. And I'm definitely not a fan of a motherfucker like Bob Chapek. But it makes me wonder how much of Bob Chapek's, latest decrees about the hiring freezes and the cutting of content and everything they're going to keep. And just under we're just keeping what Bob Chapek set up to kind of give Bob Iger a clean slate on whatever slip-ups he might initially have in the interim of coming back off the bench like Jordan and, getting the rust out while he tries to rewrite the ship back in a direction that fans and the stock market will actually like. So it does make me quite curious what is going to be just like, oh, these are still the things of Bob Chapek, don't worry about that, as we move forward. Because again, like Grace Randolph brings up, after the pandemic, it fast forward the rise and the overtaking of streaming over what you can even expect to make in the box office for theater-wise, where people are only going to go to the movie theaters for a movie they absolutely need to see in the big screen. I remember there was a time as a kid, or at least younger, when I was motherfucking hopping to see 3 movies in a single day. I haven't been to the movie theaters now since the pandemic started. And there have been movies I've thought about going to, but there used to be a time where I had to go see the movies. But now we're more used to watching everything in the house. And especially as much as your streaming service costs, you better get the most out of your motherfucking streaming platforms. So even with Bob Iger, they could maybe shore up and improve the content, but remember, they were under Bob Chapek, they were talking about cutting certain things, how much they're going to spend on certain programs. It's too early in the game for you to start getting cheap like Netflix, baby. We love Moon Knight, we love fucking Loki, we love some of the things you've been doing, but some of the other things you've been doing, we love Mandalorian, some of the other things you've been doing, fucking She-Hulk. Imagine if they actually gave a fuck about that show and actually then just throw that shit to the wolves of just female hero. She's gonna make quips to the screen. Juan's gonna be in it. Enjoy that. But hey, let's see if Bob Iger really can right the ship, or if he's also fighting against, a losing tide.
You can really tell the type of a leader you get when adversity hits. It's easy to look like a great leader when everything's going well. It's different when things aren't going so well, when the wind is blowing not at your back but in your face, and when you're facing some adversity. So right now, Disney, understanding a lot of the circumstances, still dealing with the ramifications of the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of things catching up and whatever. How do you respond to this adversity? That, hey, we've lost money, our stock price took a hit. What do we do with our direction? One of my big criticisms that I used to have of Warner Brothers years ago was they were too reactionary. They never trusted their plan. They never first of all, they never bothered to come up with much of a plan. But then whatever plans they did come up with, they never believed in their plan. You know,
Or they're filmmakers.
Or they're filmmakers. Sometimes, listen, when you have a plan, you got to have the discernment to know when it's time to deviate. But you also got to understand that when you have a plan and you have a direction, sometimes you might hit a speed bump, but you need to keep going in that direction.
And one more thing, I also don't want it to be lost on us that, like, a lot of these talks about layoffs, you know, which might still continue even though Iger's back in as CEO. Because, again, we can now throw Chapek under the bus and say, those are just his, you know, resorting to cost-effective measures of protecting Disney from what? I guess holiday bonuses. But if keep an eye out for if Bob Iger stops these layoffs. Because if not, you know, even if they throw Bob Chapek under the bus for going ahead and doing this shit, this is still the will of Disney. And the thing I want to keep in mind is, think about how sick it is that these corporations, even if like Disney's lost $4 billion off of this year and everything like that, that's bad, right? But think about how much all the top brass still make it. Think about how much Bob Chapek is still probably going to walk away with, even though he just had to step down. Like, these are the people who should be punished for financial decisions, and not just with job loss, but like with redistributing some of that motherfucking money that they've ill-gotten that's based off their workers and given to the workers that they're going to be sacrificing. Like, it's not as badly as what fucking Elon Musk is doing at Twitter. It might not be as bad as that, but think about the people who, around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, are being fucking shoved out the door and told, tough luck, nigga. Like, and I get it, it's a business, you need to make money. But it's like, even if we're happy to get better content, we need to make money at what expense and who's sacrificed. Again, we're still getting trash content along with this. It's not like everything that this has been putting out has been like, it's all worth it for the sake of the art. The art is often like formulaic and not up to par, even with the best of intentions. Again, I bring you She-Hulk. I bring you everything that wasn't family and character based in Ms. Marvel. I bring you so many of the fucking trash shit that Disney Plus is doing on the side with remaking or doing a reboot to Home Alone and all the other shit that like slides on the radar that's supposed to be just turned on to basically be the digital babysitter for the kids. Not to rant and rave and all that shit. But you get my point. Like, we say happy holidays, and there's a lot more people on the unemployment line who will hopefully get comparatively good jobs in the industry, but a lot may not. Like, we already know the issue of like the strikes that should have had that were crushed. There's people sleeping in their cars out in motherfucking Hollywood and overworking themselves to get bare minimum wage and shit like that. It's like the VFX companies that have gone down because these companies fucking abuse them and exploit them and take advantage of them to finish their movies with crap CGI a lot of times because, again, they're not really paying people or giving them the proper time to get things right. And then we just look at it as like, trash shit, trash content, and not thinking about the people who had to slave to even do that trash shit and are now both bankrupted by the way the larger studios have abused them for the sake of that content. But now, I'm not saying all that's related to the latest layoffs that's happening, but this is a year that if you've been paying attention, a lot of people have been losing their jobs, while a lot of millionaires and billionaires have been like just robbing crypto wallets and committing fraud. Because again, this endless need for capitalistic expansion when there is damn near monopoly money at this point that they're playing with. So, I'm not saying this to depress you. I just want you to really appreciate what you got going on at your holiday table. Because again, inflation, I know that shit ain't easy either. And I want in the comments for whoever's watching this, talk about things you're thankful for first. Put out your praise, put out your happiness, but at the same time, save a space also to leave a comment for the things you want us to be mindful for, so that next year there's more to be thankful for and less to be anxious about. Like, what has this story and other stories that you've seen this year made you reflect on and say, we gotta do this a better way. There's gotta be a better way to do this, for the sake of people who aren't gonna be as thankful as they thought they were at the start of the year, now that we're at this point of the year. All right? And the song I did for church was actually Amazing Grace, one of the songs. And my mom asked me, and I'm like, I've never sung Amazing Grace like ever, like professionally, especially for church. So I was like, let me look up the history for it, because like I can't like there's just too much history and too much like respect Amazing Grace for me to just sing it like it's just another hymnal. So like I told them the nice good church story behind it.
I feel so bad and dirty now.
Why?
My second favorite song is that I'm not putting this in order, so it's called A Little Piece of Heaven by Ben Sevenfold.
Yeah. So again, hopefully this content doesn't feel rushed, but I wanted to put out more content because like it's been forever and I've missed y'all. I hope y'all have missed me. All right, I love you guys. See you in a few. Peace.